Okay, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. So now let's talk about the Appendix E, which is the UN structural and procedural reforms. So, I have here a learning objective. So at the end of this lesson, the students will be able to analyze the UN structural and procedural reforms. Number two, identify the UN's emerging challenges. And number three, explain the use of science and technology and innovation into global governance. Okay, I have a question. How can the United Nations be recalibrated to rise to the new and emerging challenges? So, as we go on to our topic, we can answer these questions. Okay, let's proceed. So, most attention on structural reform in the UN system has been focused on the Security Council. Okay, when we say Security Council, it is one of the principal organs of the United Nations responsible for maintaining international peace and security. So, it is composed of 15 members, including 5 permanent members with veto power. So, it includes China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. So, ang 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms. So, ang kani daw is naagyud ang attention ani sa structural reform sa UN is nakafocus di siya sa Security Council. Because I have said earlier that Security Council is one of the principal organs of the United Nations responsible for maintaining international peace and security. So next is it is an unrepresentative in both permanent and elected membership, so unanswerable to the peoples of the world and accountable to the General Assembly, not subject to judicial oversight, and yet has betrayed the high hopes placed in it in 1945. So, ang General Assembly is the main deliberative, policy-making, and representative organ of the United Nations. So it is composed of all 193 member states of the UN, with each country having one vote. The General Assembly meets annually in regular sessions and can also convene special and emergency sessions when needed. Okay? With respect to the primary responsibility being vested in it of maintaining international peace and security, there were two requirements. So, naay duha ka requirements. So, first is the states would not resort to the use of force unilaterally, but would come together to use force collectively when ordered to do so by the Security Council. Okay, when we say the term force unilaterally, it is refers to the use of military or coercive measures by a single country or entity without the approval or cooperation of other nations or international bodies. So, mao daw na siya, wala daw siya, it is use of military na walay approval sa without the approval or cooperations with other nations. Muna siya ang force unilaterally, but would come together to use force collectively when ordered to do so by the Security Council. Okay, the historical record since 1945 shows that those resorting to the use of force unilaterally need fear Security Council, censure, and punishment only rarely, while those who need international military assistance cannot rely on the Security Council for prompt and effective help. So, ang kaniya, nasa historical record since 1945, gipakita ang those resorting to the use of force unilaterally. When tag force unilaterally refers to the use of military or coercive coercive measures by a single country or entity without the approval or cooperation of other nations or international bodies. So when a country decides to use force unilaterally, it means that it is taking action on its own without seeking consensus, authorization, or support from other countries or international organizations. So it is need for Security Council, censure and punishment only rarely. So naay punishment ana. So while those who need international military assistance cannot rely on the Security Council for prompt and effective help. So katong international nanginahanglan og international military assistance is dili sila maka rely sa Security Council para sa makakuha sila og tabang. Okay? Next is one of the best ways to empower the UN's member states is to empower the General Assembly as the only plenary UN body. So, ang one ko nung best ways na ma-empower ang UN's member states is i-empower po nato ang General Assembly because General Assembly is the only plenary UN body. So, the UN Security Council is the most important UN organ and its geopolitical center of gravity. So, but as it progressively expanded its powers and reach, so it steadily constructed the role and relevance of the General Assembly. Okay. Next is the United Nations derives its unique legitimacy and its unmatched convening power from its universal membership. The only UN body in which all UN member states come together is the General Assembly that should be a major source of its authority and legitimacy. So, ang United Nations ang UN body in which all UN member states is come together in the General Assembly. So that should be a major source of its authority and legitimacy of the universal membership. Now, one solution to the conundrum lies incapacitating the office of the President of the General Assembly. So, one of solution mentag conundrum lies is suggest that there is a dilemma or difficult situations that needs to be addressed or resolved. So, it implies that there is a complex or perplexing issue at hand that may require careful consideration, analysis, and decision making to navigate through. So, in general, when someone mentions that conundrum, it indicates that there is a challenge or a problem. Sa challenge or sa problema is capacitating is to enhance the skills, knowledge, and i-enhance na yung mga skills and knowledge of each individual or the organizations. So, capacitating the office of the President of the General Assembly. So, i-enhance ko ang office of the President of the General Assembly. So, one concrete example of institutional innovation would be to create a new post of science advisor. So, para daw, one example is for this innovation is mag-create ka og bag-o nga science advisor. Ang science advisor is it is also known as a scientific advisor or science advisor. Is an individual who provide expert guidance, advice, and support on scientific and technical matters to policymakers, government officials, organizations, or institutions. So, to the President of the UN General Assembly. So, the modern world is pervasively influenced by science and technology in myriad ways on a daily basis. Of course, kitang in our daily basis, we all know that we use science and technology that influence our daily life. So, science, technology, and innovation for human development. So, emphasizing the importance of integrating science and technology into global governance to serve humanity without borders. So, i-emphasize do nato ang importansya sa pag-integrate sa science and technology sa atong global governance para mas to serve the humanity without borders. Okay, relevance of the United Nations. So the UN, as the custodian of the global agenda, can reclaim relevance by incorporating science and technology into its governance structures. Okay. Okay, when you say custodian is a person, entity responsible for the care, protection, maintenance, and oversight of something valuable, such as property, assets, informations, or resources in various contexts. The role of a custodian involves safeguarding and managing assets on behalf of others, ensuring their security, integrity, and proper use. So that is the use of custodian is a person or entity na responsible for the care and protection of all. Okay, of the global agenda. When we say global agenda, refers to the collective set of issues, challenges, and priorities that are of international significance and require coordinated action and cooperation among countries, organizations, and stakeholders worldwide. Okay? Mana siya ang global agenda. Ang imong mga na-collect of mga issues, challenges, mga priorities na sa international na significance, which is coordinated action, cooperation among countries, organizations, or etc. So, can reclaim relevance by incorporating science and technology into its governance structures. So this can be done with the creation of a new post of Science Advisor to the President of the United Nations General Assembly. So, and for a knowledge compact to be among the early priorities for the Science Advisor that would set out the principles governing the global exchange of science. Okay, next is selection of chief executives. Addressing the legitimacy of choosing chief executives of international organizations to ensure effectiveness and performance. Okay, Article 97 of the UN Charter says that the Secretary General shall be appointed by the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council. Secretary General kuno shall be appointed by the General Assembly. When you say appointed is chosen for a job which is by the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council. But the selection process is not specified above and beyond this vague formulation. Instead, it was adopted by the General Assembly in 1946. UN Secretary General appointment, considering reforms to the appointment process such as non-renewable single term of office or increase input from the General Assembly. Term non-renewable single term, it is a term refers to a situation where an individual holding a particular position or office is limited to serving only one term. So, and that term cannot be extended or renewed for another term. So, in this context, the individual is appointed or elected to the position for a specific period. So, after which they are required to step down and they are not eligible for reappointment or re-election to the same position. So, dili na sila ma-re-elect sa same mga position. When we say a non-renewable single term is dili na pwede increase input from the General Assembly. So it could also use its power of appointment to provide substantial input into the selection beyond rubber stamping the choice made by the Security Council, whose overriding motto is offend no permanent member. So, when it's rubber stamping, the word rubber stamping is the term used to describe a situation where a person or a group of individuals is typically in a position of authority, approve or endorse decisions, policies, or actions without meaningful review, analysis, or consideration. So, it implies a lack of critical evaluation or independent judgment leading to a superficial or automatic approval process. So, lack siya og critical evaluation, pag-evaluate. So, the choice made by the Security Council whose overriding motto. So, offend no permanent member. So, wala joy permanent member ani. Okay, next is preventing a tyrannical fusion of powers in the UN Security Council by establishing an independent constitutional check to maintain the UN's integrity and independence. So, ilang gi-prevent ang tyrannical fusion. So, wala sila nag-fuse sa ubang kuan fusion of powers in the UN Security Council. So, ilang gikuan ang ilang i-maintain ang UN's integrity and independence. So, the American revolutionaries defined tyranny as the fusion of legislative, executive, and judicial powers. Muna sila ang tulo nga gitawag og tyranny. Tyranny fusion. So, in one authority. So there is some risk that the UN Security Council may be progressively approximate such a tyrannical fusion of powers as it becomes more active and assertive. So some risk of UN Security Council may mo progressively approximate kani nga tyrannical fusion of powers mo saman siya mo becomes more active siya and assertive. Next is consensus and majoritarian decision making. So, the consensus and majoritarian basis of decision making in international organizations is under scrutiny. Scrutiny is careful critical examination. So, naadyo sila careful critical examination, inspection, or evaluation of something to assess its accuracy, validity, integrity, or quality. So when a subject or matter is under scrutiny, it is subjected to close observation, analysis, and review to uncover data, identify issues, or determine its suitability or compliance with standards. So maana siya ang scrutiny. So ang kaning consensus o kanang mga ang majoritarian decision is careful observation yun careful have a critical examination. So existing rules often allow for no action if consensus is not reached. So kanang mga existing rules na ilang na kuan is dili na siya allow kung walay action if ang consensus is not reached. So which can be acceptable to member states but increasingly intolerable to populations facing urgent global challenges like genocide, terrorism, nuclear threats, and climate change. Kaning genocide is muna siya ang is a systematic destruction in whole or in part of an ethnic, racial, religious, or national group. So it is considered one of the most serious international crimes and a violation of human rights under international law. naman na siya ang genocide. So, hibaw naman taon sa terrorism, nuclear threats, and climate change. Kaya sa to, ang existing rules is not allow for no action if consensus is not reached. So, increasingly intolerable to populations facing urgent global challenges. UN Security Council decision-making procedures may be flawed and defective, but at least they are regulated and subject to international oversight and are therefore preferable to unilateral action. Okay, for multilateral enforcement action to be effective, so it must be based on a unity of purpose and action in the international community so as to avoid fracturing the existing consensus. When you say multilateral enforcement, it is refers to the collective action taken by multiple countries or international organizations to enforce rules, regulations, or agreements. So it involves cooperation and coordination among various parties to ensure compliance with established norms and standards. Okay, it must be based on a unity of purpose and action. So, to avoid fracturing the existing consensus. When we say consensus, it is a general agreement of each organizations or countries. So, that's it. Next is for collective enforcement action to be equitable. So, it must balance the competing interests among the many constituencies that make up the international community and avoid privileging the interests and viewpoints of one over the others. So, sa collective enforcement po daw is it should be equal or it must balance the competing interests among the many constituencies para ma-avoid ang naman privileging the interest and viewpoints of one over the others. Okay, multilateral institutions must recognize and involve non-state actors on the basis of criteria that ensure their legitimacy and effectiveness. Kaning mga non-state actors are entities or groups that operate outside the direct control or authority of the government and are not traditional state actors, such as governments or intergovernmental organizations. Non-state actors play diverse roles in various domains, including politics, economics, security, and civil society, and can have significant influence on local, national, and international affairs. So, muna siya ang mga non-state actors. So, on the basis of criteria that ensure their legitimacy and effectiveness. In the areas of social and economic welfare and humanitarianism, in particular, non-state actors have become integral and essential components of multilateral action. Okay, next. In conclusion, so the survival and vitality of international organizations depend on two factors: the capacity to change and adapt and the quality of their governance, based on human solidarity across borders and transcending national perspectives. The United Nations provides and manages the framework for bringing together the world's leaders to tackle the pressing problems of the day for the survival, so development and welfare of all peoples everywhere. Yet, multilateralism is under unprecedented challenge, from arms control to climate change, so international criminal justice and the use of military force overseas. At such a time, it is especially important to reaffirm the UN's role as the principal embodiment of the principle of multilateralism and the main forum for its pursuit, for it remains our best and only hope for unity in diversity, in which global problems require multilateral solutions. Of course, and global problems is needs multilateral solutions. It is the embodiment of the international community and the custodian of an internationalized human conscience. It represents the idea that unbridled nationalism and the raw interplay of power must be mediated and moderated in an international framework of rules and norms. So this is what makes the United Nations the center of for harmonizing the ever-present national interest and forging the elusive international interest. So this is the end of my topic. So thank you for listening.